Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Tonight, we have with us Murphy Jensen. A lot of people remember Murphy winning the 1993 French Open doubles tournament with his brother, Luke Jensen, in remarkable fashion, including celebrating by Luke breaking Murphy's jaw after match point. Murphy teamed up with his brother to win a total of 4 ATP doubles titles. Murphy reached a career-high doubles ranking of number 17 in the world in 1993. Murphy led the Washington Castles to 6 World Team Tennis Championship titles, including 5 consecutive titles and 2 undefeated seasons in 2011 and 2012. He played 2 years at USC and 1 year at the University of Georgia. Currently, Murphy is the co-founder and executive vice president of business development for WEconnect Health Management. WeConnect Health is an addiction, relapse prevention, and real-time outcomes digital health platform providing custom support and connection for those in recovery from substance use disorders. Murphy works tirelessly to reduce the stigma of addiction and to encourage and lead others with the disorder to receive proper care. His passion is to bring awareness to addiction and leave behind a legacy of helping others. He hasn't lost an ounce of energy after all these years. We're thrilled to have him on the pod tonight. Please welcome to the pod, Murphy Jensen. Murphy, it's about time we got you on here. Thanks for coming on.
Come on, David. It's an honor and a privilege to be anywhere living the life that I used to live. Being vertical is a win and waking up is a monster victory. I'm grateful beyond measure to be part of this pod tonight.
Well, listen, we had your brother on twice. I mean, you could only talk to him so many times, right? There was not a chance I was getting him on 3 times before talking to his, better looking brother, right?
Yeah, well, I heard he had the highest rated podcast of all the podcasts that you've produced, and it's a direct. I'll tell you, the secret is that nobody listens to himself more than Luke. I mean, he tunes in 24/7 all day, and that clicker, it's like, man, let's get the,
we had the algorithm. We had the algorithm going
on. He owns the algorithm. He is an algorithm. He's a tennis algorithm of serving aces with both hands.
That's right. That's right. So, take it back to a serious matter here. We're getting through the end of this pandemic, hopefully. We're going to get to WeConnect a little bit more later in the pod, but just with the little intro that I gave about it, how has everybody been doing that you've seen going through that application in that company with everything going on right now?
Well, with WeConnect Health Management, it was back in March, April, maybe a year and change ago, where my co-founder and our CEO had an idea leading up to the quarantine and the shutdown and everything else. She says, what happens if there's a shutdown and there are no services available for people struggling with substance use disorder, and the church is shut down, and whether it's homelessness, anybody. And where's the support going to be if those services, I can't get to the hospital or an emergency room or receive medically assisted treatment? And so we appeared on CNN by an accident because she was the first, or we were the first to provide, and we continue to provide, free online support group meetings led by peer recovery support coaches. And to date, we have pressed upwards to 1 million people visiting those meetings, which started off as 1 meeting per day. I think we're up to 8 to 10 meetings per day, and now it's embedded into the patient-facing mobile application. And it's really, this is way beyond forehands and backhands and anything Murphy Jensen could ever have imagined in his wildest dreams, being able to do something at this level where people get support, and the feedback we get from customer service or support daily is really what drives me and inspires our entire company, which is mission driven at the highest order, and that is to help others.
Amazing work. We're going to get to it a little bit of detail in a bit, but let's take it back.
The thing that the pandemic did do for the Murphy Jensen house is that got me a pretty good tan last summer on the deck, It was the first summer in my life where I wasn't on the road for some tennis. Some tennis. It might be French Open stuff or Tennis Channel stuff or US Open, Lacoste appearances, whatnot. It shut down the whole world, especially my world. But what it gave me, it got me back on the tennis court. Like it got me back on the tennis court really for me. And I started hitting on the wall. And I started doing some sit-ups like Rocky and chopping wood like Dragomir. From the movie Wimbledon. No. and no, I fall in love with this game from a player standpoint. I'm not teaching, I'm not coaching the castles anymore. I mean, I help anybody that asks me to, hey, will you hit balls with me and stuff like that. But I'm actually playing some tennis again. I've dropped like 20 pounds and I'm relearning it from a different perspective,
That's
from a
great.
different place than I did growing up in Michigan.
Let's go back to that place growing up in Michigan. I know you have a family of athletes. We know about Luke. Two sisters. One of your sisters played at my alma mater, University of Kansas. Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Jayhawks.
Rock Chalk Jayhawk there. Your dad was football player on the New York Giants. I mean, tennis. How did that get involved with your whole family?
I would love to hear everybody's response to that one, but it's pretty much a Jensen universal theme is that he built a tennis court. Everything we were doing as young children, when you have kids, every parent, all parents usually struggle. What activity should we get our kids in? What do they gravitate to? And you want to find the things that stick. Dad being really involved with athletics personally and then professionally, he taught phys ed forever. He was really interested in anything hand-eye and then our footwork. So he really had his eye on the prize, is that Luke and I would be football players without question. But he was handed a tennis racket and taught the game at a time where he was done with football. You need too many people for that. And he loved staying in shape, and he loved this game of tennis. And he knew that that tennis would be great for our footwork for football. Luke and I were also involved with tap dancing. I'm not sure if Luke had mentioned that, but we did tap dancing for a number of years. Tennis got involved, and then our mom was in gymnastics, so that threw us into some gymnastics. And I was really creative. I was into the arts as well. And then the choice of coaching after Dad taught us from tennis magazines the different tips and tutorials on how to hit forehands and backhands like a good high school coach, and taking us to different. Steve Contardi would have tennis workshops for high school coaches all through the Midwest, and he would drag Luke and I to these tennis workshops with the other high school coaches, and we were learning from the Bollettieri's and the Steve Contardis of the world, and Nick Bollettieri. Luke got introduced to him in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, took the car ferry over from Ludington. Our parents just exposed us to a ton of stuff, and tennis stuck at a young age. Growing up in northern Michigan gave us an advantage. You'd say, how is that possible? There's no indoor facilities up there. Well, number one, we took advantage of the time we had on those indoor courts. Plus, we developed the wall. We learned to play on the wall, indoors more than outdoors in the summer. And we learned to play in bad and rough conditions. So when we're playing in Romania, Nigeria, or Bologna, Italy, with big craters in the clay, a bad day in Paris is a great day in Ludington, or northern Michigan. So, if it got to be a tornado out there, it was no problem. We were used to snow flurries, hitting balls through that, and snow blowing tennis courts. And it was always a real privilege to play tennis. It wasn't a right. It was really a gift. And then we got to go indoors. So growing up with the wall and roughing it a little bit, and then we were offered Grand Rapids, or Traverse City had some indoor facilities, and we got to play tennis in here. And then we got to travel in the summers. By the age of, for me, 11, I'm playing the national circuit, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Houston, Texas, and all the nationals. I had a national ranking by 10, 11, 12, and my group was, I looked at a draw the other day. I think we've got 5 Hall of Famers in my age group. We had Agassi, who was seated at Kalamazoo this one particular year. He was seated 10th. Sampras was 15th. Courier was maybe 4th. I was 5th. Chang, you name it. I mean, and the bottom of the barrel was the Todd Martins. And I mean, it's just crazy. And Todd Martin and I talk about the first time we had met. I'm playing the 10 and under state championships. I'm 8. And this nagging woman from the Lansing Racket Club is saying, come on to my opponent. Come on, Damon. Come on, Damon. And I say to this girl, and I'm 8 years old, I'm a young McEnroe in the making. And I say, why don't you drop dead? Turns out it's Todd Martin's mother. 20 some years later, Todd goes, you're never going to believe this, but my mom, my wife,
8 years old, you said that. That's not.
Wow, where did I learn that expression? So I had an amends to make early in life, and we're good today.
That's so funny. Well, I mean, look, your parents did a heck of a job because all of you guys played at a high level. All played collegiately, and some played even higher level. You played 2 years at USC. Did not play with your brother. You just missed playing with your brother. You went 1 year at Georgia. Talk about your experiences at both those places, two powerhouses in collegiate tennis, obviously. Talk a little bit about your experiences at both those places and why you transferred after 2 years and how that kind of affected you in a personal way moving forward.
Well, I left USC I had 2 years at USC, and I entered a team that was 34-0 going into the NCAAs, and they make the semis or maybe even the finals, and they lose to Georgia at Georgia. And it was a famous match where basically riots broke out. They had kegs of beer in the stands, and you imagine the Georgia crowd with free beer. And I really felt for my brother. It's crazy that I ended up going to Georgia, but I had a connection there. Ola Malmquist came to live with me in high school. We had great teachers growing up, Luke and I. That's just really important to know. Don Dickinson from the Mid-America Tennis Academy. He probably, outside of Bollettieri, was one of the first tennis coaches to start a tennis academy in parallel with the Bollettieri and the Bollettieri Tennis Academy at the time. Brian Marcus played it for the University of Michigan. And then Victor Amaya, who was a Grand Slam champion, big lefty. We had Malavi Washington living at our house. So back to USC, I entered a team that the worst player on the team played in the Olympics and the year before, or was on the Davis Cup team for Mexico. Both guys were top 100 players in the world, Jorge Lozano and Eric Amundsen. And I'm fighting for my life with Byron Black for a spot on this team. And I have a pretty good resume. We're walking into this place.
Absolutely.
And so, I could have gone to Michigan, Northwestern, you name it, and played number 1 probably in my sleep. And that, so many offers like that were on the table. But I really wanted to follow in my brother's footsteps. I never visited campus. I think it was extremely far away from home, and not playing number 1. I think if anything I can identify with is the fact that for the first time I was feeling like the embarrassment for not playing where I thought I needed to play to get the approval of my family and things like that. So here I'm 5-6, but I'm on the best team that's ever played college tennis. Rick Leach, Scott Melville, there's a lot of Grand Slam champions in this thing, or finalists. Everybody was a top 20 player just about on that team. And that experience led me down a rabbit hole where I started partying more. The funny thing is my academics went up. My academics at USC went up because I couldn't find, I wasn't finding the stuff I got from winning tennis matches on the court. So I found it in the classroom, and then I joined a fraternity to find a tribe. And that tribe is when I started drinking and actually used drugs for the first time. And I say that with humility, and a lot of healing, because it took a long time to get to a point where I can have this conversation. It took a lot of forgiveness. And my coach at USC is someone I love to death, Coach Dick Leach. He taught me a lot. And then when I got into coaching, he was my first call And I actually made amends to Coach Leach because, I got to see as a coach his side of it and how crazy sometimes us young players can be in our requests, and how much of a headache that a fearful tennis player, or God knows what, a guy like me could give him some sleepless nights. So, but he also helped me as a human being at the highest order, as all my coaches did. And then, I looked to him when I started coaching the Washington Castles. I started studying the greats, John Wood and Pete Carroll. Anybody that had a formula for success, I wanted to emulate and figure out what. It's one thing winning. I knew how to win, but how do you repeatedly win? How do you do this over and over, and what matters? What really matters on that tennis court? And I've discovered, on the tennis court or off the tennis court, life is an inside job. And I got to get this right before all this gets right. And, it doesn't matter if you win 10 grand slams, if you go home with depression, if you go home with anxiety, or you don't have the feeling you measure up or are enough. Doesn't matter how many matches you win. And, the greatest pay grade I can hope to achieve in this life is a good human being. And I didn't know that before. I thought it was about outside stuff, money, or this, or affection, approval. And the person I got to get right with is the guy in the mirror, before. And it's so funny. I'm reading The Inner Game of Tennis 52 years too late. What a book. And in so many ways, the principles within that book and the philosophy and the values are really what set me free from addiction and everything else. It's living a life like that.
Yeah. So you did have those couple years at USC, and then you did go to Georgia for 1 year.
Yes. I just had a cappuccino. So if I go off on a tangent,
No, you're fine.
Stop me. No. And went to Georgia basically because the partying had started at USC. And I thought to myself, two things happened. My best friends and my peers were becoming very wealthy and very successful on the tennis court. Number one, Andre Agassi. Number two, Pete Sampras, and the career to follow, and then Chang. And I'm sitting here thinking, my stock as a tennis player is going this way because of my choices, and I better make a move. And it was a good departure from USC at the time. I didn't. And then Ola Malmquist, who was a coach of mine, an NCAA champion at Georgia, and became a USTA coach for, I think, close to 30 years now. I get called Manny Diaz, and there was a spot for me, and I got to reunite with my old doubles partner, Al Parker. Al Parker and I had won maybe 15 national junior doubles titles together and 2 Orange Bowl championships. So we knew what we were doing, became All-Americans overnight, and it was back to the races, and it was time for me to turn pro.
Got it. No, that was a
good. In a year and a half, Luke and I won the French Open. It was crazy.
That's crazy. But I mean, it didn't all start like that. I mean, you join your brother on Pro Tour. I mean, here he's having some success. You're the younger brother. It's not always easy doing that, right? Because now you feel, let's say you're struggling a little bit, you're playing doubles with your brother. You're like, well, I don't want to bring him down. And I'm a little brother too. So I get that, right? You're like, I don't want to bring, my older brother down with me. I need to go up to his level. And I know I've just talking with you offline and listening to other stuff. I know that you struggled with that a little bit.
No, to tell you the truth, starting out, I always knew since is my earliest memory that I wanted to be with my brother. I always felt safe and protected with my big brother, and he was my hero on every level. And younger brothers can identify with that. And so turning pro, it took me a year and a half to get a ranking that he could play with me. And after a year and a half, I was maybe hovering around 100 in doubles, and he's ranked like 4. He had just won Monte Carlo, coming off a big year, World Championships with Laurie Warder, quarterfinals of the French. And he chose to play with me in 1993. So I got, and our combined ranking at 104 is 104. And that gets us into the Australian Open. And we start off actually quite well. We get to the second round maybe or third of Doha, Qatar, and lose 7-6 in the third after a very strenuous off-season training in Tucson, Arizona with Don Dickinson, our old coach that taught Luke how to serve with both hands. So we go to Doha, Qatar, and then we rip it over to Sydney, Australia, and we make the semifinals there, taking out Scott Davis and David. We might have even made the finals of Sydney. And then the third week was the Australian Open. I want to say we made the third or fourth round there. So we're up and running and things are cooking. Coming back from Australia, I want to say we make the semis or finals of San Jose, but the key matches are we beat Richie Renneberg and Jim Grab, who at the time were number one in the world. So within 4 weeks, we beat the number one team in the world and we have good results. Now the place where you're speaking of happens when we enter the clay court season. The clay court season hits, and I want to say we are on a 8 to 10 match first round losing streak. Luke, on the other hand, has the way the tour works is that when you make the finals or win something or win a round, you have 1 year to defend those points. And so we get to Hamburg after an 8-10 match losing streak, first round, and those are 1-pointers. You're not, getting big contracts with 1-pointers. You're actually going to be sent home, working at the gas station or something back in Ludington, and which would have been pretty cool. I like people. And Hamburg, we lose again first round. And prior to Rome, the year before, he had made the semifinals, I want to say, or finals of Rome.
A ton of points to defend.
Well, ton of points, quarters of the French, and they won Bologna the year before. And so I said, hey, Luke, if you got to go on without me, I won't blame you. And he says, Murphy, I believe in you, and I believe in your ability, and our ability as a team to do great things. And I don't care if we drop to 1,000 in the world. My ranking doesn't mean as much as my belief in what we can accomplish. So that next week we beat the team that won the French Open the year before. We beat Marc Rosset and Jacob Lasik in a barn burner fight. They'd won the French Open the year before. We make the semis of the French, finals of Bologna, and win the French Open. And the day before the French starts, he says, Murph, we can win this thing. And I'm thinking, win this thing. Last time I was in Paris, I swore I'd never come back here again. It's my first French Open I've ever played. And we win this thing. And so we not only win this thing, he accidentally breaks my jaw. There's a videotape of this out there. And 2 points before serving out the match, I hadn't lost my serve in 2 weeks, I don't think. And it was just, Luke can tell the story like it's a Picasso painting of every match along those 2 weeks.
Yeah, when we had him on, he did. I mean, there were a lot of close calls there. You were very close about 3 or 4 different times of losing very early in that tournament.
Yeah, there's the one we were down 5-3 in the third and the rain delay, and there was the first 2 rounds at like 9-7 or 11-9 in the third set. But the thing about winning those close ones, or those ones you're supposed to lose, we became a very dangerous opponent, because even in the finals, we were down 2-0 in the third, or maybe even 3-0, and we came back and won 6-4. And in spite of whatever the deficit, we always had that feeling like we were never out of it. Yeah. And our mindset had just really, our saw had gotten sharpened, quite sharp. And then 2 points before winning this thing, I'm serving for it. I said, whatever you do, buddy, don't hurt me. Because in the quarterfinals, he told everyone in the locker room that he would pin me and tackle me like a big time wrestler into the clay. And I didn't want to be live on NBC covered in clay and pummeled by my big brother. And he goes, what are you talking about? We haven't won anything. And it's really interesting. I had never watched the match until maybe a few months ago. And I got so tight. I double faulted twice. And it's hard to bring a match like that home, especially if you're playing in your first final.
Of course.
I don't care if he had said that or not, but he goes, we haven't won anything yet. And I got tight. And we get down a break point. I hit a volley completely out of my rear end. And this angle volley almost went behind him. And then by match point, I wanted nothing to do with the overhead smashes that was going to be the shot to win it. And when he won it, I was so worried about him when he went to hug me that he catches me with an elbow and cracks my jaw. I ended up with a broken upper jaw, lower jaw, and chin.
Oh.
And then I didn't have to have it treated until years later, but it was like, I'm sitting there with you had to do it. You had to do it. Mom always said you were no, it's, I just went right to being 5 and feeling like being picked on, but I wasn't. And I look at Luke's, if you look at his expression, he drops his head because he didn't mean it.
Of course not.
And it's
supposed to be
like
the best moment of your lives. Yeah, of course.
The most important point of my tennis life. And this game has given us so much. We've been so overpaid, and I continue to reap the benefits of hitting forehands and backhands and serves. It could be, I live here in Seattle, Washington today, and we have a little court on Lake Washington, and I hit on the wall, and I don't care if it's a beginner or someone learning for the first time, or some superstar. I'll play with anybody.
No, that's great. I do want to circle up. We mentioned it at your incredible success with World Team Tennis, and honestly, I mean, World Team Tennis fits you and Luke to a T. I mean, you had incredible success in coaching the Castles, 6, World Team Tennis Championship titles. Your brother just killed me this summer. My Chicago smash, the very last point that could possibly been played in the whole tournament. Coco Vandeweghe rips a forehand, hits the back 1/8 of a line. I mean, the back 1/8 of a line. I texted Luke that night because we were scheduled to do a pod shortly after. I said, I can't do it. It's like breaking up with a girlfriend, right? Give me some time. Give me some time to get over this. You beat the smash by the slimmest of margins, but we did the pod about a week or two later, and it was so great talking about it. It's obvious that whole setup fits your personalities to a team. I think it's no surprise why you guys have had great success in your involvement with World Team Tennis.
It's what strikes me in that thought from your perspective is that as a player, I really struggled with World Team Tennis. And at that time, it was less defined. You had the players of yesterday playing with the current players. And is this an exhibition or is this real?
Right.
But Mark Ein changed World Team Tennis. He made it real. I mean, we had Serena on my team, Venus on my team, Hingis on my team,
yep,
Leander on my team. And then we had Query, Kyrgios, Azarenka. These are real players.
Yeah.
Still playing on the tour. And if we won, it's the coach. If we lose, it's the player's fault. No, there's no blame game in World Team Tennis. No, but I took it serious. Mark took me serious, and he was also a mentor in my professional life after tennis, where he saw the work I was doing with Tennis Channel. I had Murphy's Guide and Open Access, and I enjoyed that immensely. And Ken Solomon and I remain great friends, and Bob Wiley and all Heath Woodleaf and the camera operators, everybody, the editors, they're like family. And a lot of those guys were at my wedding, and World Team Tennis, and everybody thought they meant Luke when they asked Mark Ein, so did you find a coach? And they said, we got Murphy Jensen. Oh, no, you mean Luke? No, I got my guy. And I coached, ironically, way before Luke ever got involved. Luke didn't get involved until a couple of years ago. And Mark and I and everybody involved, it was a collaborative effort where the team bought into a culture of that we are here to serve one another and these fans, that these fans have a choice in and what it takes for a fan to get to an arena and play, and the investment. And I think what Mark did different is that he invested in those players, not just financially. He made sure they had anything and everything they needed to be successful. The arena was world class. We had cheerleaders from the Redskins or whoever, the Washington football team, that came over, and there was just so much professionalism. The stadium was state of the art wherever he ended up housing the team. And when the players are treated with that respect for the work and their professionalism, the players respond. And then I was at a perfect time in my life where I had the opportunity really to do, and if I were to give the credit why we are a perfect fit for that, we were raised by the best coaches in the world, our parents. They taught us the value of enthusiasm. They taught us the value of just giving it everything you got, and that's the scorecard. I never once mentioned winning or losing, and I really didn't care. What I cared about is that we gave this everything. We absolutely, the competitive edge was that all 5 or 6 of us on that team every single year, they had to beat all of us, and that was not going to happen. Like, you might clip Serena one night, or you might get Leander and Martino, but to get all 5, not happening. And we were really stacked up in Renee Stubbs, Bobby Reynolds, the list goes on, whether they're a star player or a journey person. That literally teed me up and set me up for success outside the game. My first real business experience, I want to say, was with the Castles, and then it was with Sea Island, Georgia, as the director of tennis at Sea Island. And I got to learn, the acumen of accounting and P&L and everything that goes into, growing a successful business. And I knew what sold the game on the court, and that's joy. You bring some joy to the game. I knew it sold tickets when Luke and I played.
100%.
And I had a young gal, and I really didn't know how to teach a tykes class. But this gal brought out balloons, and she brought fun, and she brought face painting to tennis. How do you teach a 3 to 5-year-old? Now I got a 3.5-year-old upstairs, and I'm going to bring out the balloons and the face painting and the this and the that and the bubbles. Hit the bubbles with your racket. And then they're going to associate fun and smiles with this game. Let's go play tennis. And for the first time, the 3.5-year-old says, is daddy going to play tennis today? And I just thought it was so cool. He's learning the worlds and birds and stuff. And my 21-year-old Billy is at Seattle University, a captain of the tennis team, and a 4.0 student on the president's list. And pretty
the best,
cool,
man. The best.
I where I was in 1999, the life I've been able to live since crash landing in Los Angeles, between Mark Ein, Michael Milken, and all the different influencers of my personal journey, and the people that have supported me. It's what I'm doing when no one's watching, and what actions am I taking, and am I okay with the guy in the mirror? And just like our Castles, nobody did it alone. There wasn't one person that won those matches, and it's been my experience. I got 2 dogs. There's a dog that likes to sit with me when I'm on the computer. So
no, and so you kind of transitioned to it for me, and thank you for doing that. But I want to end with kind of where we started, and that's with WEconnect. And you highlighted it a little bit, but if you don't mind, tell the listeners, exactly what it is. How did you get involved in it, and where you can find more information about it, because it's truly fantastic, the work that you and everyone's been doing over there.
Well, the story goes, that at everybody has, I'm at Sea Island 3 years, and I've had the world team tennis experience. And after 3 years at Sea Island, I felt I had grown a lot. I was 44 years old, and our dad had passed. And when he passed away, I was shot out of a cannon, and everything meant something. Every moment was important. I really understood the value of 24 hours with you on this podcast, or with my brother, or with my mom, and as our parents got older. So my wife and I sold everything, packed up everything, and headed west on a whim. And it was actually through an experience with visiting my in-laws for Thanksgiving with a nice tan in Seattle that my mother-in-law asked me if I'd be willing to take a family friend to a support group meeting here in Seattle, because I still attend support group meetings wherever I am. And in that experience with him, he says, where have you been? I said, Richard Branson's private island where'd you get that tan? And I said, Richard Branson's. He says to me, a girl in my outpatient program that built system engineering teams for Microsoft was there when you were there. You should meet her. So I got together with this gal, and she shares with me wireframes and whiteboarding, all this stuff, where when she was in treatment, her counselor said there's a 90% chance that you are going to relapse within the first year. The relapse rates for people in the first year of recovery is awful. And the opioid epidemic was just starting to take hold 7-8 years ago. So she says, we have an opportunity to leverage this technology. You can use technology for good, or you can use it for great. In our case, we can leverage this technology. And she discovered the two drivers of relapse were lack of accountability to a piece of paper she was handed when she left a treatment center. Do these 10 things for the rest of your life. It's called the care plan. There's no accountability to that care plan. There's no connection, and there's no reward or incentives to stay compliant or on track. So that was really the genesis of WEconnect. And I became the finance and funding person, and I started picking up the phone and calling everyone I know. And shortly, we went on to win TechCrunch Seattle. And Seattle, that's not an easy thing to do with Amazon, no. Microsoft, and all the tech companies up here. We win TechCrunch Seattle. Then we go to San Francisco, another tough place to win a tech competition. I'm on the main stage of TechCrunch Disrupt, and we're pitching our stuff. And then that led to a Series A round of funding. And what I'm sharing with you and the audience are things that I knew nothing and had no prior experience doing: finance, funding, tech companies, engineering developers, data scientists, all these things I work with today. The sky's the limit. The one thing that tennis has taught me is how to solve problems. Tennis on the tennis court, there's no opponent that's going to play me exactly the same. And how that opponent plays is going to determine how I'm going to play that match. So tennis really, in the way we grow as tennis players, help me in life after tennis, which is WEconnect. And WEconnect is about preventing relapse from a chronic condition that, there is no cure for. It's an obsession of the mind, an allergy of the body. And there's a lot of pathways to recovery. There's 12 steps, there's medically assisted treatment. There's so many exciting opportunities for people to get there. But at the same time, the thing that kept me sick was the stigma in and around SUD addiction or alcoholism, is that, I thought it was the worst thing that could have happened to my life. And 21 years later, it turns out to be the best thing that could have happened to me. Number one, I got to find out who I am and what was causing me to self-medicate the way I did. And then, why couldn't I stop once I started? So I know we've taken a tennis podcast into some serious areas, but there isn't one person in America that doesn't know somebody. So we leverage technology. We are an end-to-end solution. Just for free online support group meetings, you can go to WeConnectRecovery.com and get support. And then we've got peer recovery services. And we also motivate you through incentives and rewards, monetary rewards. And through your health plan, there's a good chance your health plan or your health insurance will cover it as a benefit. And if it doesn't, ask your health plan to get it.
Right.
Because to have that 24-hour support in the palm of your hand, I could be in traffic or sitting at the airport and be in a support group meeting and get plugged into the solution. I don't want to worry about Murphy's problems. What's the solution for the migraine? It's to take a nap, drink more water, relax. What's the solution to anxiety and stress? Maybe reach out. Isolation is the number one killer of people with SUD and mental health issues. I find, at least it's been my personal experience. Not that what I've read about. It's my left to my own devices, it can be a dark place between the ears. So, in so many words, this is the most impactful and important work I'll ever do in my life, because it's something
amazing. It's amazing. And the website, for those to take a look at the website, because it gives a little, background on it as well. And it's pretty amazing. Like you said, it's winning the French Open is something that, only 0.00001% of the people get to do in their life. But like what you said, the work you're doing now is even more amazing than that. And I want to thank you, for one, spending time with me tonight and sharing your journey, because it's purely, it's just awesome seeing from you what's occurred to you, what's happened to you, all the amazing things you're doing now. From a tennis perspective, the
Mhm.
sport of tennis is lucky to have the Jensen family around, because you guys
Yeah,
have given so much. And
thank you.
it's been awesome talking with you, even offline,
Yeah.
from when we recorded this. And we wish you, WEconnect, also everyone in your family, the best of luck going forward. And thank you seriously, from the bottom of my heart, from spending time tonight talking with me.
Thanks, David. Thanks, David. I love your show. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Murphy. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.